our brain is made to solve problems. That's what our brain is for. And we have to give it the direction to go. And so ladder thoughts is what I call them. It lets your brain believe that it's possible to create a new neural pathway in your brain, even though you might not be thinking I'm creating a new neural pathway. What you're doing is you're creating a different way of thinking. And most people can understand and relate to that. And so to be able to practice that, it takes practice, just like lifting weights. You have to put in the time to retrain your brain. And if you're used to anxiety, if you're used to fear and feeling stuck, to not be stuck or to not feel as fearful. I don't think we ever get rid of anxiety or fear. It's kind of part of life, which is another part of my philosophy, is that life's 50-50. And I think we're going to go from 0 to 60 or to this life that's just happy or easygoing and never experience difficult emotions. But if we allow difficult emotions to be part of the process, they're not as intimidating. We're like, oh, I'm human and I'm experiencing anxiety.
Right.
So that's how I do that.
I love it. What a great practice. And I like the idea of thought ladders, because thought stacking, it's that, I know my negative mantras can stack pretty high. And, next thing I know, I'm under a bridge in a cardboard box and, all alone just because, a client didn't call me back. I have the ability, but what I don't think people understand is that, so many studies have been done on the psychological privilege we pay to the past and our brain being heavily biased towards negativity. It is a bit of a force field that draws us that way, and it protected us. And it's a bit kind of, from our primitive brain and how it developed, and research has been done on it. So it is a bit like a force field. That's why, it's interesting to hear you say it takes energy, because you really are moving a big ship, that being your mind, in a different direction through a different practice. And it does take energy. So I love the idea of thought laddering and being open to possibilities. And you've created so many new possibilities for yourself. When people are call it a faith crisis, in their own moment, I mean, and again, I'm drawn so heavily to your this perspective that, that this faith was it was your salvation, and to lose your salvation means, do I have any salvation? What are the kinds of things, what are the lessons you've learned that you teach your clients that are in a faith crisis or struggling with leaving the faith of it? Because although you're primarily into helping people that are leaving the Mormon faith, it really does apply to anybody who's been kind of raised in a faith that they haven't looked anyplace else for. So what are the things that you do for people?
Yeah, most of my clients are Mormon transitioning to whatever comes next for them.
Yeah.
But I have worked with, I would call them high demand religions, the religions that is more than just sitting in a pew on Sunday. It is your social structure. It is everything. So yeah, yes, my podcast is called Ex-Mormonology, but the principles apply to any type of leaving a high demand religion. So I think the hardest part, one of the hardest things, there's many pieces, but is feeling, I remember wanting to be so desperately understood by my Mormon family. And most of my family is still in the church. So I love my Mormon people. My leaving the faith, that's why it was so painful, because I do love the people. But it wasn't them, it was the history of the church, but I digress. I think what happens is when I realized I have to love and understand myself and not expect that from my Mormon family, I was able to let them be who they are while I was learning and evolving. So when clients come to me and they're like, my husband doesn't get me, my mom, my parents, my siblings, I help them process that's okay. Why would they understand this when they haven't been through it exactly like you have? And there's some relief that people feel from that, because we as humans, we want to be validated. We want to be loved and understood at a fundamental level. And when you're pulling or extracting yourself out from what was your whole life, you're the one changing, you're the one evolving, and your friends, family in the religion that you're living, they are looking at you with bewilderment on their face because they love still the church. And so we become the ones that people aren't sure what to do with, because we're kind of what's the word I'm looking for? We're oh, I can't think of the word. We're bucking the system. We're going against
breaking the mold.
Yeah. And so to be able to validate yourself as you go through this process is everything.
Yeah, this is, what I pick up so strongly from you, and even over Zoom, it's amazing how the essence of your personality is captured. Because I can tell you that when I was anticipating this conversation, having not met you or spoken with you, I anticipated that there would be this bit of begrudging or animosity towards the faith and its people because you left it. And so I always assume, when you pull away from something that, you've got to kind of push it in the rearview mirror, maybe even vilify it a little bit to feel free in what you're doing. I love what really comes off of you is this radical acceptance of everybody and everything, and that their choice is theirs, and you may not have agreed with it, but you've got this incredible acceptance of everybody and this compassion and connection to people that are Mormon and your family and the choices you've made. And you talked a little bit about anger in the beginning. Is this something, is this radical, is this acknowledgement all come from, and I think I'll bring this full circle in a second, because I think you talk so much about accepting ourselves. Once we've really accepted ourselves, our true essence and who we are, what other people do, whether it's religion or sports or professionally, that FOPO, fear of other people's opinion, it all kinds of settles down a little bit when you focus on you, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because we think we can, we think we can control all the people and all their thoughts. And once we realize we can't do that, that our brain and our feelings and emotions and thoughts are the only thing we have any control over, that's the empowerment piece. I won't say I was never angry or that I still don't have anger, but I keep it in perspective and let it be there when it comes up. And I think going through an anger stage is very normal and natural. And when you see it as, it's the secondary emotion, right? It's covering up something else, which is, generally speaking, from a faith crisis perspective, deep grief and deep sadness of that connection you feel like you have lost from your loved ones. So that's where the crux of the work is, because once you can love yourself, and even if you get angry, even when you have the days you don't want to get out of bed, even when you feel like, what the fuck just happened to my life, and you allow it to be there without making it mean that you're wrong or bad or that you can't figure it out. It's just like, I'm a human experiencing anger. That's it. That's what's happening. What's underneath that? Now we can get to work when we can admit that. When we push away our anger, I call it the time capsule. It's like the emotional time capsule. If we keep pushing down all those emotions, just like a time capsule people put under a tree and unearth 50 years later, those emotions that are never processed are just going to be sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, that's wow. And let me add from my own experience, and you can nod if you can agree with me. I think they don't, those things we shove down, they don't just sit in the box dormant. They grow. They have a little energy of themselves. And I think you accepting, or all of us accepting that anger and then working through that anger is what's allowed it to dissipate for you. If we just stuff it and push it and never deal with it, when it comes out, it can be rage. I mean, it can transform itself into something ugly that we're not prepared to deal with. And so you're right. I think people say, there's a lot of things they'll say feelings aren't facts, or don't trust you. It's like, feelings to me, and what I hear you really describing more eloquently, they're a bit like traffic signals. They just exist, like, and some of them are good, and some of them don't feel good, and some of them are really scary, but they're all just telling us, they're all just information. Slow down, stop, keep going, and I think what I've learned, and what I'm so impressed with you is in a healthy way, learning to accept and deal with those feelings, like on an assembly, like, oh, here's anger. This is anger. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to hurt anybody else. I'm going to be responsibly angry. I'm going to process and think about it, maybe get it out, maybe hit a pillow, maybe, scream in the car and hold, whatever it is, I'll get it out of my body. But I'm not going to deny the fact that I'm sad, disappointed, angry, whatever that feeling is. I think that's been so amazing.
Yeah. And the thing that's hard, at least from the faith crisis perspective, but I would think this could be with any type of ideology you're moving through, is that from the faith crisis perspective, when the members still in the church see you getting angry, they're like, see what happens when you leave, see what happens. And so
Yes.
then you're like, I have to suppress this anger because I don't want them to think I'm angry. But that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is it is part of the process. It comes with the territory, and we can think and we can push it off like, oh, I'm not going to be angry. It's fine. Cause I did that for many years.
Yeah.
But like you said, it waits for you. Like the body remembers. And that's why it's so important to process feelings. Because whether you think, well, it's not real, your body thinks it's real, it doesn't know the difference. And so until you're able to process, and that's one of the things I do with my clients, is help them physically process emotions. Like I said, because if you don't, they're just going to wait for you. And it could show up in a year, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and it will feel just as real as the origin of that emotion.